Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. This is another live show. Make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel and getting into the chat and letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. I also want to remind you guys to set your notifications. I'm going to have some big announcements coming in the next couple of weeks, and you don't want to miss out. And you also don't want to miss out on shows. Going into 2024, we'll be doing 2 live shows a day. For you UK watchers, one will be at 1 p.m. UK time, and the second one will be at 9 p.m. UK time. So we're going to hit the US market and the UK market. You'll be able to watch 2 shows a day. And let's just say you go to bed early and you can't catch that 9 p.m. stream. You can always watch it in the morning before the 1 p.m. stream. So you guys don't want to miss out on those shows because, 2024 is going to be full of loads of content, loads of things, loads of announcements. I've been working on it over the last couple of weeks, and I have things cooking for y'all. So even though Arsenal's attack is not cooking, your girl is cooking, okay? And it is a delicious meal. Let's see who's in here. Kahendo says, in fact, Arsenal need 2 players who can think on a plan B if A refused. Lucas says, a day later, it feels even worse. C. Walder says, I hate football. Listen, that's what happens when Arsenal lose. It's the worst place on the planet. Chosen One says, what's up, Jess? I am just happy to be here talking to you guys. Like Lucas is saying, I actually don't feel that much better today. Usually after a loss, the next day I can really see things clearly, but I'm still pissed. I am still pissed. The Arsenal perspective says need multiple options for the poll. Listen, I put up a poll. You guys can vote now. My poll is on who would you sell in January. I know people don't like this type of stuff, but this is pertinent to the conversation today because we have some information coming out from several sources, several reporters that are saying Arsenal players are getting there's some interest gathering for some of our players, and Arsenal need to get to selling. Remember, we talked about this the other day. Our FFP situation will not change unless we let some of these squad players go. And we've only seen the benefits of letting these players go before they have zero value. Willock comes to mind. Iwobi comes to mind. 2 players that we've never missed, but we always look back on those fees and say, that was good business. And Arsenal need to do the exact same thing this January. We cannot go through this window without bringing in somebody. And I get that we want to bring in a defender, but after yesterday and the statistics that we're going to go through in just a couple of minutes, Arsenal need to bring in more than one player. So, yeah, vote on the poll. It's live now. And again, it'll be pertinent to all the information that we're going to go through today. Chosen One says, let's go 2 shows a day. I'll be waking up very early to give you guys that first show, but I love talking to you guys, and I feel like the more content, sometimes the better. Sometimes you guys miss these streams, and I know some of you guys are always like, I miss you live. You guys will have an opportunity to see me live at least once, I'm sure. Lucas says, Osimhen saw the game and said, I better save Chelsea. I saw that, and I was like, let's go Ivan Toney, because listen, if he's already twerking for Chelsea, we don't have a chance. Let's be honest. Come on. Samful says, too, some may sound controversial, but I would sell Saka to get 120 million and buy a better winger and striker. That's very controversial, and I feel like we have so many other players that we can look at to sell that have great value. I'm looking at Ramsdale, I'm looking at Emile Smith-Rowe, and I'm looking at Nketiah. Those are 3 players right there that if you sell all 3 of them, you could get close to 100 million. So I think there's no reason to sell one of your best players. You just need to sell the players that have value before they lose all of their value, because you're not playing them and they're just sitting around on your bench. So for me, not selling Saka. Let's be serious. The Arsenal perspective says Iwobi was good at 35 million. Thanks, Toffees. Exactly. And we've never missed him, not once. I've only seen a couple of people like, we should bring back Iwobi. Shut up. No, we shouldn't. Be serious. We should never bring back Iwobi. He's exactly where he needs to be. Just remembered I forgot to put up the tweet saying that we are live. So let me just do that really quick before we get into the actual mess. And like I said, make sure you guys are voting on the poll and setting your notifications so you don't miss another show. Let's see. Why is it so hard to spell live now? Okay. So Hugo is saying, good morning, Jess. Hope you're good. I am good. Thank you so much. Said, would you still take Santi Jimenez if he's available in January? I'm at the stage now with our attackers that I think any decent striker scores more goals than what we have right now. That's how I feel. I think Jimenez, even though he's playing in the Eredivisie, you stick him in this team, he makes a front post run. He scores the header that Jesus missed yesterday. He crashes the box. We miss genuine, that genuine instinct from a striker. And I think anybody who has that genuine instinct and some sort of physicality, speed, pace, strength gets into the box and finishes off some of those chances. I think that's why, Havertz has, scored some goals for us in recent games, is because he has those natural instincts to crash the box, to make runs to the back post. He knows where to be. He knows how to anticipate. And quite frankly, nobody else in our front line has that right now. So just a decent striker would be able to do a little bit of something. Yo-Yo says 100 mil, Arsenal will sell these players for peanuts. They shouldn't be selling them for peanuts, but if you sold them for what they're probably worth, if you sell Ramsdale for, let's just say 40 million, that's probably what any other decent club would get for him. If you sell Nketiah for 30 and you sell Smith Rowe for 30, that math comes together to 100 million for me. So that's, any normal team would sell for that amount. Let's be serious. Hugo says he has been linked to Tottenham. Don't want him here. Lucas says just someone hungry for goals, even like Jota. Exactly. So anybody that has like normal instincts would score goals in this team, like genuinely. Just to recap for people that were living under a rock yesterday, Arsenal lost to West Ham 2-0, and they broke a record that hasn't been broken since like 2008 of having 77 touches in the opposition's box without scoring a goal. Arsenal had 30 shots, and they had almost 3 XG in the game, and ended up losing 2-0. And it's another game gone by that we will probably rue, because we were the much better side and we had enough chances to win the game. And individual errors also caught up to us. Sloppy defending, calamitous defending also took us out of that game. And these points dropped are definitely starting to pile up, and it's starting not to look good in regards to the title race. We know that the margins are very fine, and we didn't create a gap with Manchester City. And I get that, like, people are talking about Liverpool and stuff like that. I don't care about Liverpool. The real shark in the water is always Manchester City. They're always a little bit behind the pack, but once it gets to February and March, they start to really hit first gear, or whatever you consider the top gear. That's what they hit. And so for me, it's just it's just last season we had the gap, and this season we don't. So how do we expect to beat Manchester City? So, and for people that are like, we weren't the better team yesterday, even if you take that out and you say West Ham were the better team because they were better in the boxes, I don't care how you slice it up. Arsenal had enough chances to win the game. So in my mind, I still think that we were probably the better team, but they were just better in the other boxes and they deserve to win. However you slice it, we could have and should have won that game, period. So this is coming from our blog. I just want to put this in perspective. Let's start macro on Arsenal's season, because I think this is important, because we've been speaking about our Arsenal better than they were last season. I think halfway through the season now we can talk about it a little bit more. Arsenal's league position at this point last season was first. Now we're second. Last season's points at this point, like after 19 games, we had 47 or 50. I think somebody's getting this. I think we had 50 points at this point, but we have 40 now or something like that. No, we have less than that. Sorry, this might be actually wrong. Sorry. No, this person got this wrong. Hold on. Give me 1 second, because I actually looked this all up and I got the wrong information this time. Give me 1 second, you guys. Because basically, we're a little bit worse than we were last season. Because this person is exaggerating. Okay, so anyways, basically at this point last season, we had 50 points. Now we have what? What do we have? 37 or something like that? Let me pull it up. Where is the table? I hate this website. Okay. At this point last season, we had like 50 points. We have 40 now. We're 10 points off what we had last season. We've scored less goals for sure. And we've also now conceded 2 more goals. So at this point last season, we had conceded 16. I think we've conceded 18 now. And we had scored like 40 something goals. We were already on like 40 something goals. Now we're only on 36 goals. So long story short, more losses, all that kind of stuff. I think we can say like we've been worse. Like we have been worse. And despite having a better defense, we're now conceding more goals than we probably should. And we're dropping loads of points and it's not looking good. We're on track now to score about 80 goals. That's not enough. We're on track to also get about 80 points too, which is not good enough. So Arsenal are off the pace for a real title challenge unless everybody continues to drop points, which I think at some point teams will get stronger and will pull away just a little bit. Manchester City and Liverpool looking the most likely. Arsenal will get left behind. So it's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good. So this is coming from Ars blog. I found this to be interesting too, is that Saka and Martinelli have scored 3 total league goals in their last 12 matches. 3 total league goals in 12 matches. 2 for Martinelli and 1 for Saka. That is not good enough. We had 56 shots against Newcastle, Villa, and West Ham and scored 0 goals, right? And so, last season after 19 games, Saka had 12 GA already. He had 6 goals and 6 assists. Martinelli had 7 goals and 2 assists. Jesus had 5 goals and 6 assists. This season, after 19 games, Saka has 5 goals and 6 assists, which is kind of what he had last season. Martinelli has 2 goals and 2 assists. So that's 5 down from what he had last season. And I think, Jesus has like 3 goals and 1 assist right now, which is like 7 or 8 down from last season. That's a lot. Like from the front 3, that's basically you're saying we're missing like almost 15 goals and assists from 2 players. That's a fucking lot. That's a lot. Like that's almost 40% of our production from our front line gone. So as much as people are complaining about, not having certain players at the back and Zinchenko and shit, I can see those arguments. I definitely think that what Arsenal are really suffering from are attackers that are not attacking. It's just that clear to me. Like you cannot have 40% of your goals go down from last season at this stage, because if you think about, like, take the Fulham game out. If you scored the 2 goals that we probably should have scored against Aston Villa, you win that game. If you score any goals yesterday, you probably win the game because I think that, goals change games. You probably win yesterday too. And those are just points dropped because we cannot score goals. And you cannot expect to not concede anything. Our defense is weakened at this point. Ben White is not playing anywhere near as good as he can. And we have Zinchenko back there. So with the defense weakened, you need to even that out with something. And we're not evening that out with goals. We're not evening it out with goals. And so Arsenal need to get all the way freaking for real about the attack and stop tiptoeing around it and acting as though these players are going to get it together. I think that we need to have that same level of ruthlessness that was given to like Ramsdale and have that same energy with Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus, 2 players that are not going to help us get over the line. I'm so sorry, but like Saka and Odegaard need somebody to hit. They need players to create for. And if Martinelli's not going to be able to hit form, we cannot rely upon those 2 to get us over the line. We can't. Even last season, it wasn't enough. So it's definitely not going to be enough this season. So we're in trouble. Like we're in trouble. Trouble is ahead because this is not something that's like minor. We may be 2 points off the top, and we may be like performing XG, XG and all this kind of shit. But ultimately, we're not getting any bang for our buck. These players are not putting the ball in the back of the net enough. They're not creating enough threat. And quite frankly, I just saw a bunch of players yesterday that looked like once West Ham scored, they never looked like really scoring. They were snatching at things. They were trying to get fouls. They were rushing everything. And it felt like the run-in all over again. And to be honest with you guys, if I'm really honest with you guys, the entire season so far has felt like the run-in to me for the most part. Everything just feels like there's a level of uncertainty, nervousness, and tension that should not be there in December. It should not have been there in November. It should not have been there in October. Shouldn't have been there in September. It's been totally like everything is like stress from the very beginning. We're not even in the run-in, but it feels like it. It feels like it. And it should not feel this way. They should be having fun. They should be enjoying. Do you think they look like they're enjoying their football right now? They don't, because the expectations are there and they have not dealt with whatever happened last season. It's ridiculous. But when you have situations like what we had last season, I do think you need to bring in new blood that don't have these same things going on in their head. Like, I thought we looked a lot more relaxed defending and things like that when like Tomiyasu was back there. And we definitely looked better when Timber was there in preseason because he's not traumatized. Declan Rice is not traumatized. Kai Havertz is not traumatized. When you start adding back some of those players that don't necessarily have the character and the mentality to get it over the line, that are still reeling from last season, you're starting to feel that shit come back. And so, listen, Arsenal need to get very serious about the January window because it's a slippery slope. I'm going to say this right now. I'll be really honest with you guys. It's a slippery slope between fighting for a title and being in the top 4 race. Very slippery slope. If we lose a couple of these next couple of games, we're going to be fighting for 4th very quickly. And I don't necessarily, and this might feel like because it's right here, right now, and we just lost, maybe this is my emotion speaking. But if we were to get dragged into a top 4 race, I don't know if we'd be able to get ourselves out of it. Not with the players that we have and not with the mentality that we have. You know what I mean? So sometimes the best way to get over players having these things going on in their head and being all mentally jumbled up and shit like that is just bringing in new blood. I think that helps, you know, and Arsenal need to do that in January. And it just cannot be a defender. It cannot. We are waiting for defenders to come back now. Timber, Tommy, Thomas Partey, they're all defensive-minded players. So you can bring in a defender, but you need to bring in something else that reinvigorates the attack. I think one good attacker makes everybody stand up a little bit straighter, play a little bit harder, look a little bit more excited, because right now you're just dealing with the same players that already weren't really like natural goal scorers at that, but are also like dealing with confidence issues. Arteta said it, that it's confidence. We don't have time for lack of confidence right now. We really don't. We need players ready to fight for the title. And right now, every other day, somebody's dealing with a confidence issue. Jesus has no confidence. Fucking Martinelli doesn't have any confidence. Odegaard's dealing with confidence. Saka's dealing with confidence. There's always somebody dealing with confidence. Our most confident players are at the back. And they're having to deal with Zinchenko right now. We need somebody up front that knows how to score. Period. That only cares about putting the ball in the back of the net. That's it. But Arsenal are already talking about not bringing in an attacker, striker, whatever. I think that's a big problem. You don't have to bring in a striker, but you definitely can bring in an attacker. Go find someone, Edu. Make it shake. You have like 4 players that we're not using that have value. So let's go over it. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, because we're about to get into the bigger parts. Hold on. Who's messaging me? What's going on here? Okay. I'm going into my bookmarks. Give me 1 second, guys. Make sure I have the right things. Okay. Let's talk about Nketiah really quick. Because to me, he's not the biggest problem that we have. And I don't think he's the worst player on the planet, but his status in the team doesn't reflect his talent level. It doesn't. It doesn't. His status in the team does not reflect his talent level. And the fact that we continuously bat away interest for him is not something that I think any other manager would do. I think Pep and Klopp would have gotten rid of Nketiah a long time ago. They would have sold him and brought in somebody better. Because Nketiah is not the type of player that you should be relying upon when you're fighting for a title. You just shouldn't. Even if he's doing as good as he can, which most of the time I think he's doing as good as he can, he's never going to be enough. I think if you stick any other competent striker in this team, we're where we were last season. We do not have good strikers, not ones that put the ball in the back of the net, and Nketiah is a part of that. And so Sammy McBell said that Crystal Palace are interested in Nketiah, but Arsenal turned down the initial inquiry. Nketiah is attracting interest from elsewhere. Stop batting away interest. Maybe they want to get a little bit of a bidding war because they know they're going to be a couple of teams interested in him. I know West Ham are interested in him as well. But he should not survive this January window if we could get an attacker if we sold him. If we could sell Nketiah in the first couple of days, because the January transfer window opens up in a couple seconds, we should be selling him right away so that we can reinvest in anybody that's better. Because there are tons of players out there that, despite them maybe not playing in the league, maybe not, whatever, are better than Nketiah, because Nketiah is a mid-table to lower level striker, period. That has no physical qualities that give you the edge on the margins. He's not fast. He's not strong. He's not tall. He's not good aerially. None of that shit. Even if you brought in somebody that was taller and stronger with Nketiah's skill set, we would be doing better. So it doesn't take much to upgrade upon Eddie Nketiah. And he should not survive this January window if any bid of 30 million or above comes in for him. Any bid. Like, it's his level in this team, his importance in this team is overstated. It's more about we don't have anybody else, and Arteta really likes him because he trains hard versus his talent. And I understand sometimes you have to choose hard work and stuff over talent because you're setting the tone for the culture. But we're beyond that now. We could bring in players that are good for the culture that are also very talented. I understand why we did that with Aubameyang. I understand why we did it with Martinez. Neither of them, attitude and mentality-wise, were the right fit for where we were right then, because we needed to turn things over. But we've already turned things over. So right now, the better players need to play. The better players need to play, and we need to move on from players that are average. They're not going to help us. You already have a striker that does not strike. Having Jesus and Nketiah is suicidal when Martinelli is not scoring. And that's where we are right now. And what if Martinelli never comes back into form? I think he will at some stage. Like, I think he cannot get any worse than what he is right now. But why would we risk it to keep Nketiah around? If they're batting away interest, it has to be because they want a bidding war, but it cannot be because they think that he's so important to this freaking squad that he cannot be moved on. Because when we get to the summer, nobody's buying Nketiah. In January, people are desperate. But in the summer, no one's going to buy him for real. He should be sold. He should be sold. Some of these guys that are kind of tiptoeing around it a little bit, he's not a bad guy. He's he works hard. He's done as good as he can. But we are in a win now title race, and we are relying upon a striker that doesn't strike, and Eddie Nketiah to get us over the line for the second season in a row. And we don't even have Martinelli scoring goals. So what are we trying to do? We also have Nelson that doesn't necessarily add much either. Like, we have a lot of dead space in our attack. It's nonsense right now, Like, they really need to focus on what's important, I think. And what's important is make sure you maximize the spots in the team. And right now in attack, we have a lot of dead area, a lot of players that are not really carrying their weight. Nelson and Nketiah to me they're standing out to me as players that should be moved on as quickly as possible and replaced with players that can do more. You know what I mean? Because you don't even trust Reece Nelson, and Nketiah doesn't add enough. He doesn't add enough. He needs to be sold. And that's not because I don't like him as a person or anything like that, but we're talking about Eddie. We're not talking about a player of immense quality, let's be serious. Sample says, at least we agree on Nketiah, Jess. Nketiah is useless in this team. Let's see. Davidson says Raya is crap. Saka does nothing. We have no game plan. Martin Odegaard scared to take it past a player. He runs rings around himself. Saka and Odegaard are not our problem, and Raya definitely wasn't our problem yesterday. I don't even know how you could speak about Raya or Saka or Odegaard when literally like the main issues in our attack right now are Jesus and Martinelli. But I get that agenda's got to agenda, and we have to always put our agendas out there. Anytime we lose, it's Raya, it's Saka, it's Odegaard. But really, right now, it's Martinelli is not firing, and Jesus. What he's giving us with the off the ball stuff and like all the working hard and stuff like that is not really giving us enough where it's worth not getting the goals, right? Yo-Yo says Edu is failing us. People keep saying how Dean was Wenger's conscious. Arteta needs to be kept in check. I agree with that as well. Like Arteta needs somebody to tell him that Eddie is not good enough and we're going to move him on. He needs to be told that he's not going to spend 65 million on Kai Havertz and make Emile Smith-Rowe work, make Fabio Vieira work. But he has carte blanche to do whatever he wants. That's what it feels like. He has carte blanche to do whatever he wants because they really want to support him and give him the tools that he needs. But he's making enough mistakes at this point, or at least we're not maximizing. Again, going into another window feeling like you need 5 or 6 players, I think is an indictment on what you did in the previous window, right? So if we're going in through windows and we're feeling like we still need more, then you need to tighten the leash a little bit on Arteta and say, listen, you spent all this money, like you have Emile Smith-Rowe sitting right there, but you chose to spend over 100 million on attacking midfielders. And one of them you don't really use. And Kai Havertz is Kai Havertz. Do you know what I mean? And you chose not to bring in an attacker. And that's really what we need. So some of these decisions need to be questioned. Some of these decisions need to be questioned. And for me, he has too much control for somebody that hasn't proved enough, in my opinion. But yeah, like, listen, he's made a lot of really good choices. So I'm not saying Arteta doesn't have good signings under his belt, but Kiwior, Fabio Vieira, these guys, talented players coming into the team. He hasn't figured out a way to adapt them or anything. We threw away almost 20 million on Sambi. And I do think that a lot of Arsenal players give Arteta the benefit of the doubt more than the players and just say, well, these players are shit and we just need to keep buying. Either they're shit and Arteta needs to take blame for bringing in shit players, or they're not as bad and Arteta needs to take blame for not being able to get them to work. I personally think it's a lot of times more the former, or the latter more than the former. I think these players are better than what we do with them. I think a lot of times they're very talented, but Arteta doesn't know how to get them to adapt and get them into the team. And so then we say that they're crap and we sell. And that's exactly, for me, what's happening with Kiwior, who we'll talk about in a second. The Arsenal perspective says that's where the appointment as manager is of serious note. Being a coach would not have given him that much power. And it's a double-edged sword. It's like you give him the power and things go right. And it's like, okay, great. But then things don't go right. And it's like, okay, well, how do you rein him back in? Because somebody should have told him that he's not spending 70 million on Kai Havertz. Period. As much as I like Kai Havertz and as much as I think he's playing okay right now and the midfield is fine and all that kind of stuff, that was not the signing that was going to push us to the next level. That would have been an attacker, obviously. You could have still had Declan Rice. And yeah, we probably would still be in a shitty position because we wouldn't have had Thomas Partey because he's brittle. But, you'd have Odegaard, you'd have Declan Rice, and then you'd have to just make a fucking decision between Emile Smith-Rowe, you keep talking up, Trossard, or Fabio Vieira when he comes back, a player that you spent almost 40 million on. It's not the end of the world if you have to choose one of those players, because then you'd have an attacker when we make those chances would just put it in the back of the net. So, I mean, look at Liverpool right now. They have Endo, who's not the most amazing DM. They also were playing with McAllister as the number 6, but because they have enough balance in their team where they have enough good defenders, enough good midfielders, enough good attackers, that it kind of doesn't matter. But Arsenal are very like, all their talent is back here. All their talent is back at the back. that like not enough talent was distributed and not enough resources have been distributed to the front. And like I said, that one tweet that I keep pointing out about it looks Arsenal has spent 50 million on the attack and it shows, I think is really showing now, you know? It's really showing now. Yo-Yo says the fact that we have FFP issues is a great evidence of poor squad building, having previously gotten out of the red and being amply supported financially. I feel like a lot of that is because we will not sell fucking players. Like, please sell. Like, stop messing around. It's better to sell. Once it's obvious that you need to sell a player, it's done. Once you need to sell Cedric, you're not getting anything for him. Once it's obvious that you need to sell Tierney, you're not getting anything for him. These players need to be sold before it's obvious. Right now, it's not that obvious that you need to sell Emile Smith-Rowe because people still believe that there's a player in there. But in a couple of years when he's 24, maybe next year when he's 24, I think, or the year after, yeah, it's going to be painfully obvious that he's not good enough. So fucking sell. Sell now for 30 million. I bet you can get Aston Villa or Newcastle to buy him right now for 30, 35 million. Bet you could. They have money and they like him. They think he's talented and he fits their system. So sell, just like we did Willock. As long as you reinvest it properly, it doesn't hurt you. But when you keep them and then you let them rot on your bench until you can only get nothing for them and you spend 200 million, then you're in the red. And then you have to balance the books under pressure, which is what we're in right now. When we're in January, we need to balance the books in order to get players because we didn't buy properly in the summer. But we don't want to sell any of the players that we have because it's a tricky window. Shit or get off the pot, man. It's time to sell some of these players. You have to. Like, it's just not that deep to me. Like, to me, it's just not, it should not be this hard to make decisions on selling players that you don't even use. You don't use Nelson. You don't use Smith-Rowe. These are not players that you like. You don't play them. So sell, you know? Peter Renner says, Jess, it's not FIFA or Football Manager. It's not that easy to just sell players unless you sell for peanuts. That's not true. Like, if that were the case, then why do other teams get value for their players? We as Arsenal fans accept this because this has been our reality, but that's not everybody else's reality. It is very viable to get 25, 30 million for squad players if you sell them before it's obvious that you need to sell. Like, it was not obvious that we needed to sell Willock. That's why we got 25 million for him. It's not that obvious that you need to sell Emile Smith-Rowe right now because people still think that there's a player there. We accept our reality and say it's not FIFA, it's not that easy to sell players when our contemporaries are able to do it. No, they don't do it all the time. Like, I'm not saying that every single window they do it, but they do it often enough to prove that what you're saying right now is not true. Because we wait until no one wants them to sell. Like, we should have sold Ainsley Maitland-Niles when Wolves wanted him for 15 million. But we decided to keep him for 2 more seasons until he was useless. So it's not true that we cannot sell players for good fees. It's only true because we're not good at selling. We accept this reality. It's not reality. It's our reality because we're not good at selling players. So for me, I think we're being disingenuous here. Because we have sold Iwobi, we've sold Oxlade-Chamberlain, we've sold Willock. We were offered 15 million for Ainsley Maitland-Niles. We're being offered an opportunity to sell Nketiah. We've been offered opportunities to sell Emile Smith-Rowe, and we're not doing it. So it's to me, it's bullshit, you guys. I'm sorry. Like, let's be serious for a minute. Let's be serious for a minute. Like, come on. It's not about it being FIFA. I'm not selling, you telling me right now that Aaron Ramsdale, we've spoken about this before, that you should sell Aaron Ramsdale between 35 and 40 million based on the comps, based on him being English, based on his experience, and based on the profile boost that he's gotten for being at Arsenal. But Arsenal fans are somehow convincing themselves that because we're not going to be able to sell for that amount, we should keep somebody in the team that is not getting any playing time, but has decent value. Anybody else would sell him for 35, 40 million, but we accept nonsense. Sell him. Sell him to Wolves. Sell him to Newcastle. They're interested in him and they have money. So why is it like the end of the world when we try to sell? Come on now. Kasim says Arsenal could have sold Pepe early and got some money. Same with Nelson, Tierney, Lakanga, Tavares, and Cedric. So much money wasted on Vieira. Havertz, absolutely poor negotiation skills. The Arsenal perspective says, when is the former Real Madrid scout joining us? If it's in January, perhaps he may have a signing or two coming out of left field for us. I hope so. Kamar says, every time the team lose, we blame the coach. The players are playing the game, not Arteta. I mean, I think yesterday's game was mostly the players not executing. I don't think Arteta's game plan was wrong or he got out-coached by Moyes or anything like that. They literally shit the bed in front of goal. But he also has chosen not to bring in attackers that can score. And so that also, you know what I mean? Like, not bringing in an attacker is also going to affect us as we go through the season, you know? But yesterday, the game was not on Arteta, to me. Manine says West Ham was willing to buy McTominay and Maguire for 70 million. Smith Rowe, Ramsdale, and Nketiah have value to fund a major signing, but Arsenal fans are scared that they will make them better. Pep said this in one of his press conferences the other day, and I agreed with him. He was like, that's the reality, is that you have to get comfortable selling to your rivals because they're the only teams that can buy your players, you know, and float those wages. They're the only ones. So you have to get comfortable with selling. Like, people were actually saying that Manchester City were stupid for selling Cole Palmer. No, they fucking weren't. Man City will probably win the league again, and Cole Palmer will be at Chelsea. As good as he is, he has not changed. Like, they do not miss him because they have enough good players in their team, and they will reinvest that money properly. I think they just bought that Echevarri or whatever, Argentinian, like that really young, like the next gen. They already replaced him with a young ass player that's not even in their team yet, but they're on track to winning the league again. So no, it like, we're too insecure, and I kind of get where that comes from, because it's like, anytime we sell a player to a Premier League team or whatever, they always come back to bite us. Willock, you know, he made the assist to score against us. Mavropanos is fucking scoring against us. I get it. But being afraid to sell to rivals because we're afraid that they'll make them better, I think just shows our insecurity and our beta syndrome, to be honest. I don't think it should not be the reason why we don't sell, you know? Egregious Gregius Monk says, it's true, as a Chelsea fan, you can sell players, you just have to be more worthless, or maybe you mean more ruthless. Yo-Yo says, most of the value in the squad is homegrown players in starting 11. Kasim says, and this is the thing, it's like, that's the truth, you know, and starting 11, but we don't want to sell anybody in our starting 11, and I get that, but the players that have the most value are the ones that people are holding on to for nonsense reasons. Emil Smith Rowe, Reece fucking Nelson, and Nketiah. Those are players that should be sold. You know, they should be sold because they're either not good enough or they don't add enough value in the squad, and they're like dead weight, you know? Like, we're not going to sell Saka and all these kind of guys, and we shouldn't be selling those players, you know? And then, because we've already lost opportunities to sell the likes of like Cedric. Like, they were never really that good anyway. Like Cedric, El Neni, like, we're not selling them for any sort of money. That's fine. But that next step up is our homegrown players that we need to be selling them on. Not because they're bad, not because they're mean, not because I hate them, not because I don't think they have talent, but because they're dead weight in the squad and they're not adding any value, you know? They're not adding value to our games. Like, Arteta either doesn't trust them or they're not good enough, you know? So you need to sell. Curtly says, Arteta should be blamed to some extent. At the end of the day, if you keep playing the same way and don't have a plan B, your players become complacent. It's as simple as that. Peter says, I have no problem selling any players for the betterment of the team. Sell Jesus if we get a profit and get a better player. I wouldn't even sell Jesus right now. Like, I think there are obvious players that we should sell before we even look at like our starters, you know? Newman says, Jess doesn't understand the transfer market. Our rivals don't want our dead weight, and Europe can't afford them. I'm not even talking about our rivals. I'm talking about West Ham, Brentford, Crystal Palace. These are actively, in fact, let me read this because this is a part of the show. Arsenal have rejected Crystal Palace inquiry for Eddie Nketiah. Sorry about my phone going off. For Arsenal in January. So it's not even about selling to your rivals necessarily, it's selling to the Premier League. So I do understand how the transfer market works. I understand it very well. Where it's not even about selling to your rivals. It's about just being like, just being real. Sell Nketiah to Crystal Palace, Brentford, or West Ham. Sell Emile Smith-Rowe to Newcastle or Aston Villa. They both want him. Sell Ramsdale to Newcastle. Those teams are not necessarily our rivals, but they're definitely in the Premier League. So, and based on reports, those teams want our players. So I don't know what part of the transfer window I'm not understanding, but I feel like I'm making perfect sense. Like, I get that, like, the whole point is our players are so shit, nobody would want them, but I'm reading right now that teams want our players. So, like, that doesn't really make any sense. Let's talk about Kiwior, because there are also rumors out there that Arsenal are now open to selling him, in order to raise funds for the January window. Now, what really pisses me off about this is not that, I think, Kiwior has done that well, or, whatever. I have questions about Kiwior, but the fact that, like, if he's the first one on the chopping block, but we're stopping people from coming to get fucking Nketiah, then I have a problem with that, because we need defenders, and Kiwior is a good player that hasn't had an opportunity to adapt, and we don't know how good he can be, right? We don't know how good he can be, but we know how good Nketiah is, and we know he's not good enough, and teams want him. Why won't we sell him? I don't think Kiwior should be on the top of the chopping block. But what I'll say about this is that I think where there's smoke, there's fire. I think there's been enough consistent rumors where at least maybe his environment, his agent, and the people around him probably don't like the fact that he's not getting any playing time, right? And so, you know, even if Arsenal are not 100%, like, I don't think they want to loan him, but if somebody offered them like 20 million for him, maybe they'd sell, because I don't really believe that it's working out. And the reason why I don't think it's working out is not because I don't think Kiwior is a quality player. Again, this is somebody that starts for Poland and played for in the World Cup. Like, this is not a bum. He's a good player, and he's highly rated, from the team that he came from, the league that he came from. I think it's a surprise that he hasn't adapted so far. But when Arteta is actively playing players that don't play in that position, I think it's a red flag. It's like, we bought Tomiyasu for the right, he's playing on the left. Timber was bought for the right, he's playing on the left. Zinchenko is in bad form and has obvious, like, flaws in his game, and he's still playing over Kiwior. Those are red flags to me that you just don't like this player. And so my feeling on it is, if Arteta is not going to play him against Liverpool, when Zinchenko is obviously not the right choice, he's not gonna play him against Aston Villa. He's not gonna play him in the big away games where you need a better defender, and he also doesn't trust him to play in cups or anything like that. Then maybe it is better to cut ties now before we inevitably ruin his value. Because right now his value is still high. You could still get somebody from Serie A to maybe do a loan with an obligation to buy for like 20 million and get most of your money back. But what I don't want to happen is for Arteta to do what he's done with everybody else and keep them around just for the sake of having them around, not loan them out, not try to get money for them, ruin their value, and then try to get rid of them when it was obvious that you didn't like them from minute one. I don't think Arteta rates him. I don't. You don't consistently play other players in that guy's position if you rate them. The biggest way to show that you rate a player is play him, period. There's no protecting him. He's 23. He's not 19. Like, there's no need to protect him. Play the guy, but he won't. He doesn't play him, and he's already done the thing where his confidence is gone. Kiwior plays like a player that is devoid of confidence to me. He's constantly overthinking the things that he knows he should be doing. Like, come on. We've seen this before. We've seen it with Sambi. We've seen it with Fabio Vieira. Now we're seeing it with Kiwior. It's the same thing. We spend decent money on a young player that doesn't necessarily start, but needs a little bit of adaptation because they're coming from another league, and they get left on the bench and not adapted properly, and then boom, they're useless to us. I really like Kiwior, but if Arteta's already acting like he doesn't want him, move on. Move him on. Move him on. Because at this stage, like, we need a defender. Like, we need a defender, you know? I really like Kiwior, but when is Arteta just going to play him? Arteta is one of the worst managers to play under if you're not going to be in the immediate starting 11 and you need time to adapt. Trossard and Jorginho, they were fine to adapt into our team, mostly because they're grown-ups and they've played before and they've played in this league. But everybody that comes from other leagues that need finished, done, they don't adapt and they don't get enough playing time to do so. But you have other managers that just put them in the team. I don't think it's rocket science. And like, to be honest, like, I want to go back to something that I felt like I like Arteta, but I don't always agree with everything Arteta does because that's normal. You don't always agree with everything that everybody does, right? But I feel like this nonsense of like that game against PSV was not a good chance for like the young players to play. Like, I'm not somebody that feels like the academy players have to be playing, but do I feel like a dead rubber was 100% not the right opportunity for them? I don't believe that shit. I don't. But a lot of Arsenal fans were like, see, Arteta said a dead rubber, they could not have played in it. Arteta doesn't know how to adapt and like to get players into the team and integrate them properly unless they're into the starting 11. So no academy player is going to get integrated in. Emile Smith-Rowe and Reece Nelson are fucked. And all the players coming from other leagues that aren't in the starting 11 don't adapt properly and are a waste of money. You know, like that group, academy, non-starter, these guys are all, they're not getting the love and attention and the adaptation and the, like, they're not getting integrated in, you know? But everybody just agrees with everything Arteta says because they're like, well, he said it, he must know. But that's bullshit. A dead rubber against PSV, you couldn't have even given Noweri 5 minutes? Like, I accept that you didn't want to play him in that game, but I don't accept that, like, you couldn't have played him in that game. You just didn't want to. It wasn't like it was the worst opportunity. It was a dead rubber. Nothing was going to change. And we still drew the game with more, like, we were still terrible in that game, you know? So, listen, forget about Emile and Reece Nelson. They're not getting integrated. They're not getting more playing time. I think it's obvious at this stage, like, they're not going to do anything. So, figure out a way to move them on. Kiwior, Sambi, Fabio Vieira, I don't know what to tell you because you're not in the immediate starting 11, but you haven't been integrated into the team in a way where your confidence is not totally destroyed. Don't know what to tell you. Noweri, Rule Walters, you guys, you're never getting integrated into this team. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, let's be honest. Like, let's be honest. I like Arteta. He's doing a lot of good things, but like, let's be serious here, you know? Look at the themes, look at the trends, look at how things happen. He's yet to integrate anybody from the academy. You know, he talks a lot about loving ESR, but every chance he gets to play him, he doesn't play him. He doesn't play Kiwior, or he plays anybody and their mom over him in his position. You know? So that's all I'm saying is that if he doesn't like Kiwior, sell him because he's just going to end up like everybody else. He's going to end up like Sambi. He's going to end up like Fabio Vieira, who are inevitably going to be on loans until their time at Arsenal runs out, you know? Here to There says, Martinelli and Jesus used to have such a natural connection. Last night was so discouraging as it appears it has been extinguished. I don't know. They can connect in the Champions League. Not sure why they can't connect in the Premier League. Lucas says Kiwior is a shy guy that doesn't know the language and struggles with physicality. It was a wrong decision for him to leave Italy. And if he's not a Premier League player and he can't hack it in the Premier League and he, you know, whatever, then again, I'm just saying, like, literally before it becomes one of those things where we can't move him on for decent money, but Arteta doesn't like him enough to play him, you know, you need to make a decision, I think, a little bit quicker. Neil says Arteta still scared from last FA Cup against City, where we rotated Arteta, scared to lose momentum now. I mean, I can't even get into the cup conversation because it's just, I think we're too accepting of going out of cups with a whimper. We do it every year, and people say it's because we rotate. I see other teams rotate and they don't play half as bad as we do in cups because the players that come in have no incentive to play well because they know even if they play well, they're going to get benched. They're cold. They have no confidence. And that's about squad management. And it's something that we've spoken about since the beginning with Mikel Arteta is if he can keep the gray areas of the squad invested enough where when they play, they feel like they're really a part of the team. But Kiwior, Vieira, these guys, they don't feel like they're a part of the team. Emile Smith-Rowe, these guys, like they come into those cup games and they're expected to keep us in it, and they're totally like they're out, and but everybody tells me that because we rotate, it's okay to go out of cups early every year, yeah, we rotated against Manchester City. We got bopped. I mean, we rotated against Forest the year prior. We got killed. In fact, ever since we won the FA Cup, we've been really poor in that competition because we've rotated. So, I don't really know what to tell you guys. I really don't. I don't think it's a good enough excuse that we rotated, so we went out. P-Trim says, what about Saka and Martinelli's integration? They were already in the team. They were already in the team. They were already in the team when he got here. So they integrated fine. They integrated fine. It's just that's the one thing about Arteta that I just don't feel like has gotten any better. I think he's done a really good job. That's the thing. It's like anytime that you say anything that's not overtly positive about Mikel Arteta, I think people feel like you're Arteta out. And I'm not Arteta out. I just don't feel like he's that good at integrating players that are outside of his starting 11 into the team. I think they all end up looking devoid of confidence. They don't play well, and they inevitably end up leaving for no money. So that's kind of where I'm at. Chris says Emery integrated Saka and Martinelli, not Mikel. Yeah, they were already in the team. They were already in the team already, JC says play Jesus instead of Martinelli and give Havertz as the head man. I mean, I was talking to my friend about this yesterday that, there's so many other things that we can do with the front line to maybe give us more options, but, we don't do anything but Nketiah in for Jesus and Trossard in for somebody else, and then Reece Nelson and ESR if we're desperate. But there's so many other things that we could do. I mean, it's not like ESR has never played left wing for us, and it's not like Martinelli is not a natural number 9. So the fact that we never use those options feels a little bit like we're cutting our nose off to spite our face a little bit. It's like we're actively limiting our options up front. For what reason, I don't know. I haven't always been a big fan of Martinelli down the middle, but we haven't used it enough. We haven't used it enough. You know what I mean? So, but the only options that Arteta uses is Nketiah off the bench. And the next one is Trossard. And then again, like I said, Reece Nelson and ESR if we're desperate. And there's not enough creativity, I think, from Mikel Arteta, in those situations, but that's just me. Like I'm saying it from here. Maybe he has tried those things in training and it hasn't worked, but I would like to see a little bit more. I don't think Emile Smith-Rowe would be the worst option at left wing because he's done it before. That's where he played for us when he had his best ever season. So why would we decide that he could never play there again? We need somebody else that can score from that left-hand side. We need to be more flexible in the way that we play up front. We need to give our attack more different looks, and we're not doing it. And so, but the main player that comes in off the bench is Nketiah, and he's probably the least talented out of Emile Smith-Rowe and Reece Nelson and him. And that's, I think the crux of the issue. Chris says, I don't hate Mikel. I don't either, but he's textbook narcissist and ridiculously stubborn. We will always have squad issues under him. It won't ever change regardless of who we buy. Oh my God, not a textbook narcissist. That made me die. Okay. Yo-Yo says ESR was fit in the second half of last season while Xhaka started getting nosebleeds and Fabio was still settling in, yet the club will choose not to sell him in the summer. This is nonsensical. I agree. And I think people that was like, oh, well, ESR, he could be a good player. He could still be it. We're talking about things that happened like 2-3 years ago now with Emile Smith-Rowe. Like he is not rated under Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta does not rate him. I don't care what he says. I don't, because we know Arteta is a liar. What you know about Arteta is if he wants a player to work, he fucking plays them. He played, when he bought Havertz, he was like, you're working. I'm playing you. You know, he likes Havertz, so he plays him. He does not play Emile Smith-Rowe, you know? Emile Smith-Rowe coming on at like the 80th minute yesterday pissed me off so badly because he should have been on at halftime for either one of Martinelli or Trossard, and he didn't come on. But I bet you, you know, like if Emile Smith-Rowe had started and had played like either one of Eddie or Trossard, he would have been snatched out at halftime, you know? So that's all I'm saying is I like Mikel Arteta, but there's definitely some, I do have a potty mouth. I'm sorry. I can't be perfect, you know? All I'm saying is I'm human, you know, I'm human and I have a potty mouth and it's my channel and it's not for children. So if you have children and they're watching, don't let them watch my show. But I'll try to limit it a little bit, but you guys, I'll be so honest. Like, I'm only human, like, you know, but I'm sorry if I offend anybody. I do. Here to there says, Jess, you referenced Champions League games that were weeks, months back. The confidence connection is obviously not the same as Nelly and Jesus. With Nelly and Jesus, maybe. But why don't they have confidence? You know, why don't they have confidence? I mean, why is it that there's always so many players in our team that lack confidence? What's that about? You know, if you're not strong fucking willed, you're not having, it's like your confidence is broken under Mikel Arteta. For real. Like, we have so many players devoid of confidence at one time in a season, you know? Arteta needs to figure that out. Because I do think it's weird that we always have like a lot of players out of form at one time. Everybody off the bench is out of form. Like, we don't have anybody that can come off of the bench and, like, at one point, Trossard, if you brought him off the bench, he was scoring. And now everybody's convinced themselves that Trossard is not a good player. And I'm like, do we live in the same universe? This is somebody, when he first came to Arsenal, every time he came off the bench, whether he played on left wing or central, was scoring goals and getting assists. Now he can't even make a corner. You know, he can't even put the corner over the first man. You know, we saw Tommy go through the same thing where he was a player that came in, you know, in his first season and had a lot of confidence. And then in his second season, which maybe had a lot more to do with him losing his mother than anything else, but another player that took a long time to get back into any sort of level of form that we know him for, you know. There's a lot of players that go through these bad runs of form under Mikel Arteta. And a lot of them are not starters, you know, but you need those players in your team to be able to come off of the bench and give you a boost. Like, if you have to bring these players in to play in cup games to keep you in them, they're not going to, because they're devoid of any confidence. Yo-Yo says, frustrating that we never ever see the simple option of swapping flanks against low blocks to simply simplify things and widen the pitch with Saka left, Martinelli right for 5-10 minutes to diversify the attack. Yeah, I don't know why we don't swap positions more. I mean, we saw it a little bit yesterday, but it didn't happen enough. Like, they need to be consistently swapping. I remember we played against Newcastle like maybe 2 years ago at home. This was before their takeover. And we beat them 2-0. And I remember Tomiyasu put in this fantastic pass into Martinelli for the second goal, I think. And it was fantastic. But Martinelli was on the right and Saka was on the left. And we were playing against Steve Bruce. So, you know, we were playing against, not Steve Bruce. Yeah, Steve Bruce. We're playing against Steve Bruce, and it was a mean, nasty block. But we haven't done it anymore. We haven't done it anymore. You know, we don't do it enough. But when we usually break down the deep blocks, it's usually because we're swapping positions and we're not doing it enough. Everybody is too stagnant, you know? And I don't know if that's intentional or if it's because the players just don't do it. You know, Elliot from the Arsenal Vision podcast, he tweeted something earlier that I wanted to read out to you guys because I want to get your guys' thoughts and feelings on this. We still have more to talk about, you guys, so stick with me. But let me see if I bookmarked it. I did. Yes. Okay, so he said, I think most agree that we have a scoring problem. The question is whether, and this is my biggest question, which I don't know yet, and we will find out. The question is whether it's form or whether our attacking players are not at the very elite level needed to win titles. My view is there's nothing wrong with how we play, so we have to hope the players turn it around in front of goal. And you know what's interesting about this too is that somebody initially like said underneath the comments that said, we reek of Potter's Brighton. And I had not thought about that before, but the 77 touches, the amount of chances that we created, and the bluntness in front of goal does remind me of Graham Potter's Brighton. I also don't have a big problem with the way that we play. I know it's not as exciting as last season. I know that it's not as swashbuckling and fun, but a lot of that has to do with just the fact that we're not playing without expectations anymore. And we've changed a couple of players that are less aesthetically pleasing than the players that we have right now. But make no mistakes about it, in the last 10 games, we've created more than enough chances to win more games and score more goals. And so we do look a lot like Brighton's under Potter. And, teams would sit deep against them. They'd create chances and they just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And so I do wonder whether it's just they're not good enough. That's basically what Elliot's inferring, is like they're either not good enough or, they're just out of form. And so I think with Martinelli, what we're trying to understand is he going to go to that next level and be more like Saka, or if he's somebody that we need to upgrade upon, which I think is probably something that people don't want to hear, but we're not in preschool. It's the reality is that some of the players that we love in this team are going to have to be upgraded upon at some point. There's only about 2 or 3 players in our team that cannot be upgraded upon, really. Because in the market, you would have to spend 100 million to get a player of similar quality. So Martinelli, I think, is somebody that we're constantly linked with left wingers, by the way. And so I think there probably is a question in the club of whether or not he's the right player to be our elite winger on the other side, because I expected him to have his breakout season this season where he would have Saka's like last season. You know what I mean? But he's gone backwards. And that's disappointing. Now, when it comes to Gabriel Jesus, I think we just have outgrown him very quickly. And like I think I read the tweet yesterday that from Jordan, and I'll read it again for those of you guys who weren't here, which is fine. No big deal. You guys weren't here. You guys left me alone. No big deal. I'll survive. But let me see if I I did save that tweet. I'll just look it up. But it was a really good tweet that Jordan retweeted, and I was like, listen, such a good tweet. Did he unretweet it? Okay. Arsenal have one too many players whose main value proposition exists separate from their primary positional designation, a center forward whose worth is not measured in goals, and a left back whose worth is not measured in defending. Can carry one but two. Very, very good point. And then Olu said, who I don't always agree with everything Olu says, but I think he made a lot of sense on this one, if I can find his tweet. But he basically said something to the effect of, with Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus, we've always been on the line of Jesus and Zinchenko have always been on this balance since they joined of what they give us versus what they take away. Jesus' connectivity versus missed chances. Zinchenko's build-up and availability in possession versus lapses defensively. Both this year have tipped to the wrong side of the balance. Now, I want to take Zinchenko out of the conversation because we've already replaced him. Tomiyasu is already playing over him, and we know Timber, as soon as he's fit and available, Zinchenko will not be getting as much playing time. Take him out of the equation. But I want to talk about Gabriel Jesus because with Martinelli, I think we're still trying to understand whether or not this is a blip or whether or not this is somebody that we need to upgrade upon. You guys can let me know in the comments and let me know what you think about that. But when it comes to Gabriel Jesus, I think this is so true, is that his connectivity is so important. But right now, because that connectivity and like that creativity that we were seeing a lot of last season is not really bearing as much fruit, we're starting to look at it like, okay, well, couldn't we just get the goals? And the way that we're playing against teams now, where they're sitting in a deep block, it kind of would be useful to have somebody that could just get on the end of crosses, that gets on the end of like really easy chances too. Like there's just too many times where the ball goes across the 6 or goes into like the goal mouth area, and instead of just striking the ball, he does something weird, like tries to get a foul or just completely misses it. The chance that he misses with a header, I think any decent striker that's not Jesus puts that in the back of the net. And so I think that's kind of where we are with Jesus right now, is that what he gives us with the connectivity and all that kind of stuff is great, but it's not enough to make us not think about all the missed chances, and the fact that because Martinelli is not scoring, that number 9 position is a lot more obvious. Like we're looking at it a lot more, if that makes sense, So it's nuts. Let's see. Kwame says, you're right, Jess. The hard reality is that some players might not be as good as we think they are. And listen, that's the thing. It's like I'm not as, I guess, because I'm just not, maybe I'm just a hard bastard and I'm just cold-hearted or something like that. But like, as much as I love Ben White, I felt like Timber needed to come in because I think Ben White needs to be upgraded upon. I think he should still be in the team, and I still rate him. You can rate somebody and want them still at Arsenal, but also accept that there's a better player out there or somebody that can offer you something different that makes us better. Ben White plus Timber is great. Tomiyasu plus somebody else is great. Those things are fine. I don't have a problem with that. So the same has to be said about like Gabriel Jesus. I think he's definitely somebody that has value as another forward in Arsenal's team, but we've outgrown him to the point now where we desperately need a goal scorer because Martinelli's not scoring. And so Arsenal cannot overlook this, because we don't look like a team that's going to get to the amount of goals in order to win the title. And 2 seasons, like we can't be going through 2 seasons pretending as though we're not supposed to be in a title race and it's okay to, whatever. We need to really make a hard push for it. Mr. Happy says 50 million is a lot for a squad player. I mean, not in the look at the amount that everybody else has spent on their attack. Be serious for 1 minute. Look at Liverpool. I showed you guys this before. I'll show you guys it again. I'm so glad I made this little slide because it's coming up so handy now these days. Because it proves my point more times over. So 50 million is a lot for a squad player, but how much did Spurs spend for Brennan Johnson? Didn't he cost about 40 million? How much did they spend on Richarlison? Wasn't he about 60 million? How much did Liverpool spend on Luis Diaz? Wasn't about 45 million? How much did they spend on Nunez? Was it about 65 something million? How much did they spend on Gakpo? Wasn't about 45 million? So how much did they spend on Jota? It was about 35 million. So no, 50 million in this day and age is not that much. That's how much it's going to cost you. Like if we wanted to get Nico Williams and bring him in as a part of our squad, it would cost us 50 million. That's what his release clause is. So in this market, let's upgrade what our thought process is around how much players cost. A squad player that's going to give you decent output is going to cost you 45 million. And Jesus fits that bill, So for me, it's just that simple. When you look at it and you look at everybody else's attack, we've probably spent the least amount on our attack. And there's no surprise that our attack is one of the worst in the top 6 in terms of, scoring goals and things like that. So yeah, you have to spend money on your attack. So Jesus being a part of the team, I know people are trying to push this narrative that we need to sell Jesus. We should sell Nketiah for 30 million first. I don't want to hear anything about selling Gabriel Jesus until we sell Nketiah. Sell Nketiah, sell Nelson, and then we can start talking about selling Jesus. But just because people don't like Jesus right now doesn't mean that he's the first one on the chopping block. He has too much quality to be looking at him before Nketiah. Sell Nketiah first. He needs to go first. Yo-Yo says, had my reservations with Gabriel Jesus when he came in last summer, called it before a ball was kicked. We were where we were in 2015-16. Higuain was there, and we foolishly went into a season with Giroud. Boy says it's late to claim Havertz was bad recruitment. Nicholas says, Arsenal need 2 strikers. That front attack yesterday was pathetic. I think we need a striker and a winger. Aha says, just out of all the regulars this season, who were also regulars last season, who were actually been at the same level or better, only the CBs. We also average less than 1 open play goal per Premier League game. Mostly just like Gabriel Saliba are at the same level. I think since Odegaard has been not injured, he's been pretty much the same Odegaard. Saka's been pretty much on his same level in terms of GA, maybe not in terms of performances, but he's probably, he's just going to do Saka things. It's fine. Zinchenko's definitely not at the same level, and Jesus not at the same level. Ben White's definitely not at the same level. So a lot of players have dropped off, but I'm more concerned about what's going on up front. That's the main thing that I'm looking at is Martinelli and Jesus, because to me, those are the main ones. Vignesh says, problem with selling Nketiah is who's going to sign a backup striker, or at least shell out 30 million. I mean, again, Crystal Palace and West Ham both want Nketiah. So we have to stop pretending as though he doesn't have offers on the table. I don't know how much those offers are, but I bet you they're at least 25 million. And Nketiah is all profit. Nketiah is all profit. He's from our academy. So it's not like we have to worry about, oh, we spent all this on him. We just have to sell him. So 30 million or whatever, 25, 30 million, fucking sell. Get rid, make some money off of this player, I think people are being super disingenuous with this idea that, just because we don't like Nketiah and don't think he's good, that West Ham and Crystal Palace would not give us 25 to 30 million on Nketiah. And also, us always consistently saying that our players are shit doesn't necessarily help either. We're kind of like our worst enemies as well. We talk about our players like a dog, but then we expect people to come in and buy them. Come on now. Cutley says, Jess, I think what we need to ask ourselves, would a number 9 fit into Arteta system? Is tactics more suited for inverted wingers, I believe? I think I think Odegaard and Saka could definitely find ways to serve a striker. That's all I'll say about that. I think we're making it way more difficult than it needs to be. I think you put somebody up there that has any sort of ability to make runs, crash the box, score goals with their head, things like that, strike a ball properly. I think Saka and Odegaard would figure out ways to get that person the ball because they consistently pass the ball to the back post. They consistently create chances in games, and it's just nobody's there, So I don't even think it's that difficult. I think we're overthinking it. Just stick better attackers up there, and I think things will happen. So yeah, but even somebody was saying that here to there says Luis Openda went to Leipzig for 35. We can fill Eddie's spot for around that. I really think people are like, just because we don't like Eddie or you don't think Eddie is good doesn't mean somebody wouldn't pay 25 to 30 million for him in this market. This is the Premier League. Really bad players have moved for good fees. Let's be serious. Like if you're seeing let me just think of somebody somebody that nobody rated and went somewhere. I can't even think of anybody right now, but we're talking about decent players are going for 45 million. So Nketiah can definitely move for 25, 30. And he currently has offers on the table, but Arsenal are acting like they don't want to sell him. And that's what's pissing me off more than anything. Nicholas says, get Eddie and Nelson up out of here. We need serious ballers to help bring us Champions League trophy back to the Emirates. The final is in London. Let's go all out. Just sell, man. I'm not trying to be mean, but what are we holding on to these players for? O'Malley says, didn't Brewster go for 25? I'm telling you, people are being so disingenuous here. Well, Eddie's shit, so nobody will buy. Come on now, be serious, you guys. Let's see. Yo-Yo says a certain profile will definitely benefit the likes of ESR, Fabio, Saka, Odi, and put Jesus, Kai, and Martinelli to the bench. I don't care who needs to go to the bench, but to me, I continuously watch Saka and Odegaard create chances for people that just don't put them away or are not there. And I think Odegaard and Saka would eat with a good striker. You think about the way that Saka links up with Kane, the way Odegaard linked up with Isak. These two players need goal scorers on the other side to put those chances away. And right now, the players on that left-hand side are just not doing enough. Our striker is not doing enough. And I think they're suffering. I do. I think they're suffering. Nocturnal Gunner says William went to us and did nothing, then went to Fulham. Be serious. I mean, people just was saying any old thing. Here to there says Conor Gallagher 45 million offers McTominay 35. Exactly. So Nketiah can move from Arsenal to Brentford to West Ham to Crystal Palace for 25, 30 million. Come on, you guys. Like I get it that Nketiah is not our favorite person, but be serious. Like, you know what I mean? And he's also our top goal scorer, so why wouldn't he go for a lot of money? Let's see what else I want to talk to you guys about. There were other things that I bookmarked that I wanted to talk about. So also Besiktas and Trabzonspor have approached Cedric's agent, and an offer for the Portuguese could arrive in January. He should go 75 million £1,000 off of the books per week. We're not going to get anything but a nominal fee, but just getting his wages off the books and also before his contract runs out would be great. He's one of those where it was just a bad signing. I think him and Pablo Mari were both not that great of signings, but we were in a different era back then where Arteta could not figure out a way to get Ainsley Maitland-Niles to play right back. And so he went out there and grabbed somebody. He grabbed anybody he could. And we weren't really shopping in the same market. You know what I mean? Like now we're shopping in a more expensive market. But back then we were very much so looking for players that fit a certain type of budget. And yeah, when you shop at Food for Less, you definitely get food for less. And that's what we got with Cedric. And that's all I'm going to say on that. He needs to go in January. There's no point in keeping him in the team. So this is coming from John Cross. The likes of Eddie Nketiah, Smith Rowe, and Aaron Ramsdale will attract interest this month, but it would take huge offers for Eddie to go. They couldn't entertain selling Ramsdale unless it was massive money, and Nketiah has always insisted he will fight for his place. And this is for me too. It's like Nketiah basically saying that he wants to fight for his place means I'm not trying to give up these wages. You need to make it abundantly clear that you don't want him at the club. Just like we did other players that we didn't want at the club, make it abundantly clear that you don't want him here either. We have to be very ruthless. It's weird to me that we're ruthless with some players and not ruthless with others. We're ruthless with talented players that have bad mentalities, but bad players that work hard and run, we can't seem to be ruthless with them. Nice guys, we can't seem to be ruthless with them. It took us way too long to move Rob Holding on, and he cost us in 2 different seasons. And now Eddie is somebody that's getting the benefit of the doubt because he's a nice guy and wants to work hard and fight for a spot. There is no spot to work for. That's what you have to tell these guys sometimes. There's no spot to work for. We need to bring in somebody, so we're going to sell you. So one of these offers you need to accept. You need to get really, really real with Eddie Nketiah very quickly, because what spot are you fighting for? Why do you want to be here so bad? The only reason why I think he wants to be here is because we gave him those high-ass wages, which at the time I knew was a mistake. I said it multiple times, did not like getting him that contract because we should have sold him then. He was never good enough. We should have been replaced him by now. Also, I saw something about Reece Nelson. Sevilla and Wolves would like to take Reece Nelson on loan in January, but the player is minded to stay and fight for his place this season, according to CBS Sports. That's also key. That's code for I have these high-ass wages and you're not going to give me these high-ass wages, so I don't want to leave. Make it clear you ain't got no spot. But we have to stop strapping these average guys that don't really, whatever, to these high-ass wages. Both of them are making like £90,000 per week plus, and neither of them deserve that level of wages. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. It really is. But he should go to Wolves. Like, and the fact you don't want to fight for your own life, Reece. Like, seriously, you really need to go. Like, he would be good at Wolves. He would. I don't care what he'd do at Sevilla, but whatever. Go to Wolves, man. But I think a lot of that with Nelson and Nketiah is more about the wages and stuff like that. But, Arsenal need to make it very, very clear that we don't want you here, and we'll move you on quick, fast, in a hurry. I just don't think we're firm enough with these players. I think they know that there's a soft touch with certain players and we take a harder approach with other players. And I just think we're too soft with these guys, these Eddies and Reese Nelsons and shit like that. And I get that they're nice guys, but like, please, they shouldn't have a spot. Like, they're not good enough. Now, this pissed me off. Arteta has reportedly shown interest in Barcelona defender Sergi Roberto with a view to Arsenal potentially making a move for the Spanish in January. If this happens, please shove me off of a cliff. I will not want to be here anymore because this player is shit. Why would we want you? The exact type of player we do not need. I don't want to Sergio Roberto. I don't even want to entertain it. I'm not even gonna like go look and see what type of no. He's not good enough. Off first, sometimes you get like an initial feeling on a player, even though you don't watch them all that much. I know this player is not that good. I don't give a fuck. I don't care what the stats say. I don't want him. Do something else. Do something else. I don't want him. I'm sorry. Like, if somebody can convince me that he's good, tell me. But I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach that he's not very good. So no, I don't like it. Let's see. Micken says, do you think it would work to play Eddie up front with Jesus as a plan B substitution when plan A clearly fails like yesterday? No, not necessarily. I don't think the two strikers that aren't good at striking thing doesn't work, especially when they don't have any connection. Jesus and Nketiah don't play off of each other. I think to have a good strike partnership, these players have to play off of each other. I think Havertz and Jesus might be a good option as a double striker kind of thing. But, ultimately what I'd like to see Arteta try, maybe just even one time, is Martinelli through the middle and Jesus off of the left and leave them in those positions and see what happens, because Jesus is better in wide positions, making decisions and dribbling and getting past his man, and Martinelli is a better goal scorer. So put them in positions that probably suit them a little bit more and try that more than, like, for us, putting two strikers up front doesn't necessarily mean we get more goals. Do you know what I mean? So I'd rather see that. Blaze says Justin's so desperate when Arsenal to sell Nketiah. Arteta likes Nketiah. Unfortunately, it will stay in January. Well, then I'm desperate for Nketiah to go in January because we need to bring players in. And the only way we'll be able to is if we sell players like Eddie Nketiah. So that's why, because I want us to win the title. I want us to do more. I want us to be in the title race for real and be able to win a trophy. So it's not just about being desperate to get rid of Nketiah. There's value there with Nketiah, Ramsdale, and ESR. Sell them and bring in somebody that can help us. That's why I'm desperate for them to go. Manoon says, again, I'm getting worried about the amount of power we're giving Arteta in dictating our signings. I said it a couple of maybe like 2 years ago now, that Eddie would be the player that sacked Mikel Arteta. And I still stand by that. Sticking with somebody so average makes no sense, because I know Klopp and Pep would have gotten rid of him already. Adebayi says Sergi Roberto is not very good, but he will bench Ben White. Damn. Here to there says Havertz and Jesus are basically playing in a strike partnership as is. Yeah, they kind of are, but I don't know. You could still put another midfielder in there and change the way that we do some things. So I have the same feeling on like, oh, well, Zinchenko's basically playing midfield now. Well, no, he's not. He's still being asked to do defensive role. So even though Havertz and Jesus are basically playing in a strike partnership right now, if you just changed the shape and did something different and actually had them in a strike partnership, things would be different. Let's see. Arsenal Perspective says, I must have understood Arsenal's tweet yesterday when they announced the lineup and said Martinelli in attack. I thought he was going to play down the middle. Didn't happen. Yeah, it definitely didn't happen. Dodd said, would you bench Martinelli, Jess? I would try something different for sure. Like, if you're not going to try him in a different position or switch things up for real, I would probably look at giving him a couple of games off just to, I don't know, maybe get a chip on his shoulder, maybe get him to concentrate a little bit more, maybe knowing that you're going to start every single game, rain or shine, also makes you complacent and makes you think that you can have games like this week in, week out and nothing happen. Maybe he's just too comfortable, but I don't think we're going to play him into form. Maybe he needs to sit down. The thing about it is that I worry about the players that we have to bring in if he's not available. Like Trossard's confidence is gone. He's in horrendous form. So he's not somebody that I feel like people feel confident being in. And then Arteta doesn't see Emile Smith-Rowe as an option off left wing, and Reece Nelson is not good enough either. So yeah, I don't know what to do. I really don't. Aha says Martinelli has got to be dropped. He should have been dropped yesterday. Last season, he got dropped and came back firing in a run of poor form. Jesus left wing, Trossard center forward, Havertz back in Sunday. The thing about it though is that Arteta's already like Trossard's also in bad form, and Trossard doesn't have any confidence. When Trossard first came in, this is why I don't buy into all these things that like Arsenal fans have just decided that Trossard is not any good, because when he first got to Arsenal before he was dropped needlessly for Jesus when Jesus wasn't even fully fit. When Trossard was in peak form last season, when he first came to Arsenal after the transfer window, he was scoring almost every single game or assisting, playing really good with the side. I didn't forget because I watched the games. You guys did too. And as soon as Jesus was even remotely fit, Arteta dropped him. And he really hasn't been the same since. And so I just, with Trossard, it's like now he's not in good form. So is he the right player to play either? Every time he's in a little bit of form, he gets dropped. Like he was in good form and he was dropped for the Lens game, and I get that like Havertz started and he was really good, but anytime somebody gets a little bit of like a good like run going, they're dropped. And I don't know how you expect these players to gain a little bit of confidence. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe play Reece Nelson. Reece Nelson is kind of, I don't think, not gotten like the run of games that maybe he should have. Like, but at the same time, like even watching Reece Nelson yesterday, I was like, not good. Vagnish says Trossard is one of our most clinical players. Trossard at left center mid doesn't work. Dodd says Trossard isn't prolific either. Yeah, but if you're choosing between the most unprolific players, you still have to choose somebody. We don't have a prolific scorer, so saying that Trossard is not prolific, like what does that mean when nobody is prolific? You know what I mean? I just think it's very weird how everybody that doesn't start just automatically like becomes a bad player after like a year of being here, but yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe Trossard is not very good. And maybe I just imagined his time at Brighton and imagined those first couple months at Arsenal, and they never really happened. Just like I imagined the first couple months of Fabio Vieira at Arsenal, and then he just went down the tubes. Like I imagined the first couple games that Sambi played where he was actually pretty good, and then he went to the bench and never came back. It's a theme, you guys. It's a theme. Here to There says, agreed, Jess. Arteta did the same with Vieira, as he was playing well, then discarded. The only player that's ever been able to play multiple games in a row and not play well and continue to keep his spot is Havertz. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing, because Havertz needs to work more than anybody else because he costs so much. But listen, if you want to have a bench that works for you, you have to nurture the bench. You have to know how to water the plants and all that kind of stuff. And he's not doing it well enough, in my opinion. Chosen One says, Jess, what do you think of a player like Bakayoko for competition for Martinelli? Seems like he could cause a lot of trouble for the opposition. And doesn't Saka have like the second most expected assist? The thing about Arsenal need a true winger in their team. They have a number 9 playing as a winger, and they have Saka, who's more of a creative forward, as a winger, and both of them are doing really well and stuff like that. But we really need just like a traditional winger that what their main job is to beat their man and score goals and get assists, and they know how to do it because they've been doing it for their whole life, right? And so I think either one of Bakayoko or Nico Williams would be a good option, because one, both of them have been linked to Liverpool pretty heavily, and if there's anything that Liverpool knows and Klopp knows, is attackers. He gets it. He knows how attacks are supposed to be built. He knows what good attackers look like, and if they're linked to Liverpool, I think they're probably a good attacker. But what I like about both of those players is what they do is they make a decision to beat the man. They beat the man, and then they make the decision. The next action is quick. I think we take too long to make a decision initially, and then once we make the decision, then our next decision is taking too long too. And I think that's, we need somebody that just gets the ball, beats the man, puts a good ball across the box. Like, that's what you need when we get a striker too. Like, we need Saka to be a creator, Odegaard to be a creator. They could also score, but the other two players kind of need to be like goals. Like, the winger needs to be able to just beat the man and put the ball in a good area for the striker. That's it. That's kind of like, so I would take Bakayoko, I'd take Nico Williams. I think as much as people want like Leao and stuff, I do think like genuinely, even just bringing in like a Nico Williams or a Bakayoko would take us up a level because they're just good, decent attacking players. And right now we're not getting enough at all, you know? We're just not. Boy says, wouldn't jump for Klopp's attacking recruitment. He's made plenty of misses. We should go get Nico Williams with his 50 million release clause. Edu loves a release clause. I think Klopp gets attack. Like, I really do. I think he gets what good like attackers look like. He recruited Mane, I think, and Salah, didn't he? I know he recruited Mane for sure. He knew Firmino from his time in the Bundesliga. Luis Diaz has been good for them, even though he's been injured. He knew Jota was a good attacker. I think the main one that people are looking at is Nunez, but Nunez is better than the attackers that we have based on statistics. Even he's been so bad this season, but he has more goals and assists than anybody else in our team. So yeah, I think I do trust Klopp a little bit more than Arsenal or than Arteta, you know. So yeah, Blaze says, Jess, did you see what Ben Jacobs said about Nketiah? It seems Nketiah won't leave Arsenal in January. That is so lame. And you know what? It's not surprising. And you know what? We deserve to get what we get because we're going to have so many games of the season where we look at our attack and we just go, there's not a single player in our attack that anybody is afraid of, that, you know, strikes fear into anybody. And yeah, if you're going to the Etihad, you're going to Old Trafford, you're going to the Toilet Bowl, you're going to these places, shit, what if we end up going to the Allianz Arena and you end up going there with Nketiah? You would deserve to get what you get. Ben Jacobs says, my info on Eddie is he remains the same as mid-December. AFC currently not contemplating a sale. That won't change unless they bring in a striker. Arsenal see Nketiah as an important squad player, and that's why we are where we are, because we view him as an important squad player instead of somebody that needs to be sold and moved on, you know. And that's just, I don't know how else I can put it. I just don't think any other team that's fighting for top honors would have a player like Nketiah as a major squad player in their team. If he was way down the pecking order, down where Reece Nelson was, and we had two other really good attackers, Nketiah would be fine, but he's the first man up. He's the first man up. So listen, whatever. Team News and Tick said, this was 2 weeks ago, talking about Crystal Palace being interested in Nketiah. Hopefully there's been some movement since then. I was told pre-match yesterday, we just don't have the depth required. So I'm hoping we're busier in January than most expect. Get busy. Get busy. Arsenal, stop playing games. Because this little act that they have going on right now, that like we're just going to trust the squad that we have, it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. Yo-Yo says, haha, Jess has no time for Eddie. It just, when your contemporaries have Alvarez and Jota coming in as their next man up for their attack, and you have Eddie, you have problems. And that's not saying that, like, it's not really about Eddie anymore to me, because he's doing as good as he can. He got a contract that he probably shouldn't have gotten. That's not his fault. I'm looking at the club sideways like, are you serious? You know, like, come on, be serious. You know, that's all I'm saying. Boy says Havertz is not poor recruitment, tired narrative. Here to there says, here's the thing about the Havertz recruitment thing, because what I think about Havertz is that I think he's good and I think he will get better. And I've liked what I've seen over the last couple of games and things like that. So I'm okay with the signing. And I think his profile is very interesting. But if I could go back and spend that 65 million on something else, I would have. And that's just it. You know, here to there says, at best, we should have been able to get Havertz for way less than we did. And we certainly shouldn't move heaven and earth to accommodate him in every way. I agree with that too. I think we basically allowed Chelsea to get out of the mess that they were in by giving them 70 million for a player that probably we should have paid like maybe 40 million for. And so we paid a premium in wages and fee for, I think, a player that's probably worth more like 40 million. And so, how far could 30 more million have went, So yeah, that's where I'm at with the Havertz thing. I've accepted it. It is what it is. I hope that he goes up a couple more levels. That would be great. But, I do feel like we could have used that 60 million a little bit differently. Especially since we already spent 100 million on a midfielder. That's a defensive midfielder. All of our resources have tend to go towards the back. And as a club that has spent a lot of money on the defense, we bought that like Zinchenko, Ben White, Gabriel, Ramsdale, Raya, Tommy, Timber, Partey, Rice. Like that is so much. Like when you just let's split it. Let's just split it. I want to do the math now. I don't have a pen or anything. I'll just do it on a document because I just need to look at this now. Let's look at Arteta's tenure so far, right? And look at how much he's spent basically on attack versus, this is going to be so funny. Okay, because we already know so we're going to break it up between attacking midfielders and above, like forward, and defensive midfielders and back, right? So let's say he bought Ramsdale and Raya. He bought Ben White, Cedric, David Luiz, Mari. You guys let me know if I missed anybody. Gabriel, Zinchenko, Timber, Tommy, Georgie, Partey, Declan. Am I missing anybody? Am I missing anybody? So Ramsdale, Raya, Ben White, Cedric. So I'm going to say that's all the signings that he's made, like defensive signings that he's made so far. Now attacking forward, Fabio Vieira, Gabriel Jesus. I'll give him Willian. Trossard and Havertz. Yeah. So just on just looking at that, defensive signings alone, like defensive midfield back, players that are not meant to help us score goals. They're meant to help us keep goals out. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 signings. But in terms of the attack, he's bought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players. So that's more than double. It's time to spend some money on the attack. Tavares, Kiwior, even more. Oh, Odegaard. I forgot about Odegaard. Yeah, so we have Tavares, Odegaard, Turner, and Sambi. So Tavares, Odegaard, Nuno, Tavares, Sambi. We'll put Sambi in defensive midfielders because that's where we're playing him, and Odegaard as an attacker, right? So even still with those, you can put Matt Turner too. That's still like 16 defensive signings versus 6 attacking signings. Again, like it's more than half. Like that's a lot that he listen. Like we've spent double, we spent double we bought in double defensive minded players than attackers. We need to start looking at the attack a little bit more. Arsenal Perspective says, just take White and Declan and it's over that. Exactly. We've spent so much on defense, it's crazy. Yo-Yo says David Luiz was signed under Raul to replace Koscielny. So yeah, we could take David Luiz out of there. So it's 15 defensive minded signings and 6 attack minded signings. We need to balance it out a little bit more. And I get that it's going to cost money and stuff like that, but I think we've done enough defensively. at this stage to start looking at the attack. That's all I'm saying, you guys. Like, when you just look at it with your eyes, it's different. Vignesh says, realistically speaking, looking at our squad, we have a higher chance of making a deep run in the CL than the Premier League. I mean, on paper we do, but I still don't think we have the experience necessary to go as far as we think we do in the Champions League. But that's just me. P Trim says, just those attacking positions we need filled are not likely in January. They're not likely, but I mean, like, you could if you wanted to. Like, that's the thing. It's like we convince ourselves that we can just not spend any money on an attacker in January. But how does Liverpool continuously buy attackers in January? Did they buy Gakpo and Luis Diaz in January? Weren't they both January signings? Wasn't Jota a January signing? Am I wrong about that? Those are all attacking signings. At least 2 of those were in January. We just won't. Because we won't sell and we won't be serious. It's not like you have to pay it all up front. Not everybody has a release clause. So yeah. Yo-Yo says, the fact that we renewed Eddie and Reece tells you everything you need to know about him. O'Malley says, could we spent a lot of money up front on Declan. Listen, here's the thing. Here's my final thought on this. Even if we can't spend in January, that's only our own fault. And the fact that we feel desperate to need to do it just says everything. We should not feel like we're desperate to bring in signings if we've spent so much that we don't have any money that we can spend in January. That means we haven't done right. And I get the one signing that I'll give them I'll give them leeway on is we couldn't have anticipated Yuri and Timber getting the ACL. We couldn't anticipate that, so that's whatever. But could we have anticipated not having enough goals? Yeah, we probably could have. And so maybe we could have pushed the goalkeeper signing, and we could have pushed Kai Havertz signing or that type of signing. He could have used Fabio Vieira and ESR, 2 players that we're not getting anywhere near enough from. Instead, utilize those 2 players and brought in an attacker. So then we wouldn't need money now. We wouldn't need money now. So that's all I'm saying. Boy says it's easy for us to make signings if we sell some dross players, simple as. And I think we've all kind of gotten into this almost like apathy and kind of like acceptance of the situation. And we're like, well, because we never have money in January to spend and because we never sell players for good money, that means it's normal. It's only normal for us because we're not good enough at it. So listen, it's a little bit of a rant. I have to be honest with you guys. Like, I just did not feel any better about yesterday. Usually I feel much better the day after, and I don't, because all these things are coming out about the January window, which starts in like 5 minutes. And the only thing I'm getting is that there's interest in our players, but we're not willing to sell because we're too principled to sell. And it's just like, it's nonsense. When you're and I don't think Arsenal feel desperate enough. And that's what pisses me off, is that they don't feel desperate enough to make these big decisions, because I don't think they're as committed to winning things as they should be. And they cannot be looking at the squad that we have right now and not feel desperate to bring in somebody. If you were desperate, you would be desperate to sell some of these guys that you're not even using anyway and are not good enough to get us over the line because you want to win. And so I start to question whether or not you actually feel like it's like we need to win something this season. Because you're not desperate, and you should be, based on what you're seeing. Based on these numbers that I read out earlier, that were almost 40% under the amount of goals that we scored last season at this stage from our attackers, that should be very worrying to you. That should not be, let's keep Eddie because he's great and he runs hard and trains hard and we love him. It shouldn't be that. It should be like, how could we move Eddie on? We shouldn't be a Mill Smith Rowe. We're going to keep him around just for the numbers. It should be Aston Villa. Are you interested? Newcastle, are you interested? Should not be, Reece Nelson. We love you. You're just sitting on the bench rotting. It should be Wolves. How much you got? It should be that. We should be trying to conduct business, but they're not doing it. They're not doing it. So yeah. But listen, we have Fulham coming up, and that game is, make sure I get this right, because I'm actually I want to spread this out, because today is not going to be like an actual preview, because I want to fully get over the West Ham thing and then talk about our game with a clear head and a clear mind. And I can't do that without having have done this stream. So thank you guys for helping me out with that. But we play on Sunday, so we could actually do a show, a live, after the games go off tomorrow. So the games are at 7 a.m. tomorrow, my time. So let's say about, no, Manchester United are also on. We don't have to watch Manchester United's game for real. Okay, so let's say about, what's 9 a.m.? I just want to make sure I get this right. So about 5 p.m. your guys' time tomorrow, 6 p.m., we'll do a stream and we'll do like a full preview for Fulham and all that kind of stuff, and have a little bit of fun doing that. But like I said, make sure you guys have your notifications on because I have a lot of stuff that I'm going to announce in the next couple of days. But make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, get into the comments and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you guys as I usually do. Even some of you guys that are always talking mess, you guys only pop up when we lose, Newman. When we're winning, you don't really be here. But when we're losing, you always make sure you show up. But I'll definitely be back tomorrow for another live stream. And like I said, starting 2024, we're going to do 2 streams a day. Once at 1 p.m. UK time and the other at 9 p.m. UK time. So that should hit the UK watchers and the stateside watchers. So nobody's mad at me. But make sure, again, like I said, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one tomorrow. Bye, guys.